Hi, welcome back to Mountain Boys. Today on Fly of the Week, we're just going to do a foam amp pattern. We're going to do it all in all black today. Sometimes I find that the red and black does a little bit better. So when I do that, I will do it with red thread and red foam on the abdomen segment. Today we're going to do it in all black though. So size 16 hook, and I'm going to use, what am I using? What size? 6/0 black thread. So we'll start here about halfway on the shank, and I'm going to start my thread wrap. I'm going to wrap back on itself a little bit there. So now I have this tag end. Instead of just coming in and snipping that off, I really want to seat that thread onto the shank of the hook. So what I'm going to do is, since I have enough thread wrap there, I'm just going to give that thread, that tag end, a sharp tug to the front, and that'll break it, and it'll, like I said, it'll seat that thread wrap onto the hook really well. So bingo, just like that. Little pro tip there for you. So I'm going to thread wrap back to where we're starting to make the bend in the hook, and then I'm going to wrap back forward. Do a quick thread wrap over it. If I was going to tie in with red on this on the back, I wouldn't have wrapped clear forward with the black. I would have stopped about right here. And you'll see why here in a second. So give myself a little bit of taper here for what's going to be our abdomen segment. And that's pretty good. So I'm going to go about to where you're about even with the point of the hook there, and I'm going to tie in a piece of black foam. So here I just have some 2 mil sheeting that I cut in a little strip, and I'm going to come in, I'm just going to point the end of it ever so slightly, make it easier to tie in. So I'm going to tie in right there at that point. Kind of gave it a loose wrap to start with, and I'm going to cinch up. I'm going to pull up to really secure that against the hook. And we're going to put some tension on the foam towards the back. You don't need a lot. You don't want to break the foam here. And I've broken the foam many times putting too much pressure on it. So it kind of has a sweet spot of the tension you can put on it while you wrap back. We're going to go to where we finished our thread wrap on the bend of the hook before. And as I get near the end here, I'm going to let up tension just a little bit. So there we go. We're at the end where we'd finished before. So now I'm going to bring my thread back forward again. We're just going to drape the foam over like that. Loose wrap. And I'm going to cinch up. Just like that. Give it a couple wraps. So what we're doing there with those few wraps, that defined the segment of the fly, and it also gave us a nice flat spot right there to tie in our hackle. So we're going to use some small black dry hackle here. You don't need a lot. You just need enough to get 1, maybe 2 wraps on this. So don't use a whole lot. You don't want to be wasteful with your materials. You want enough to work with, but not so much that you're just going to waste a bunch of hackle, because like anything, you know, it's not cheap. You have to get these materials. So there I just stripped the fibers from the shaft of the hook back a little bit, and that just gives me a nice clean part of the shaft to tie in for right there. So again, loose wrap, cinch up, and give it a couple wraps to secure it. Now, a small piece of hackle like this, you might be able to wind that by hand, but I'd suggest just using hackle pliers. So that way, when it's where you want it and how you want it, if you needed to, you could just let it drape and the weight of the pliers themselves would hold it in place. So there was one wrap. So that's about 1.5, maybe not even quite 2 wraps. It's there at the top. I'm going to come in, find it there, give it a few wraps to secure. There's 3. Make sure that's nice and tight. Now I'm going to come in with my scissors, and here I'm not actually going to snip the hackle. I'm just going to make that V point right there. I'm going to come in over the top, and I'm going to push that point onto the hackle, and I'm going to pull the hackle back at the same time. So what that'll do, that'll cut the hackle where I want, and I won't be cutting a bunch of the other fibers on the top there, and I don't run the risk of snipping my thread inadvertently. So just like that, pop. There we go. So that's secured in. I'm going to drape the foam back, and I'm just going to kind of finish out my thread wrap here on the front a little bit. Don't need a lot, and you don't want to crowd the eye because this is where we're going to be tying off here in a minute. So about right there. I'm going to bring the foam back over. Again, loose wrap, cinch up with it. So once it's cinched, you can see really tied that down. I'm going to give it another probably 2 wraps just so it'll hold. I'm going to come in with my scissors. This time I am going to snip the foam. So I'm going to put tension on the foam again, not enough to break it, but I do want to come in and just carefully snip that just right there. So you can see where the cut piece of foam is, right there on that. So we're just going to give it another wrap, 2 wraps, just to secure it like that, and we're going to come in and whip finish the head. There are a couple different types of whip finishing tools. This is the one I like. Took a little getting used to. I don't really like the spring arm one. I think they call that the Thompson whip finisher. That one's not as handy to use. Just like that. So I've still got a little bit of tension there on the thread, and I haven't really cinched down the final knot, but you can see I caught a few fibers there in my knot. So I'm going to come in with my bodkin, and I'm just going to pull those out before I cinch down. Again, I'm not going to snip my thread here. I'm just going to come in with my V-notch and just push the thread into it. And tying is complete. Finish the fly. I'm just going to come in with a little bit of cement on the whip finish head right there. You can use head cement. You can use a little bit of super glue. I actually just like using clear nail polish, and just give it a quick dab, just enough to secure those threads. You don't want to get so much that it'll drip down into the eye of that hook, because then when you're out fishing, you'll have to clean out the eye of the hook before you can tie on your tippet. So as far as fishing this fly, I would say complete dead drift on this. You don't need any action on it. A true ant in the water too isn't going to ride as high as dry fly. It won't be completely submerged like a wet fly. It might ride more like a spinner. So half down like that, and that's it. I'm just going to dry it off a little bit here. There you go, foam ant. See you next time on Fly of the Week.